Mission: Impossible crew members who quit offered jobs by porn company.
I worked on the set of Fallout. He was a nice guy, always said hello and good morning, afternoon. Only saw him lose his temper once when he was on the first floor and talking to someone on the floor below and they were ignoring him. The production company is his, I believe, which would make him liable for the livelihoods of quite a few people. Hence the rant, I would imagine. My brother's worked on a couple of big budget movies with him in the past few years, and has nothing but good things to say. Sounds like he's a massive control freak. He'd often make significant set lighting changes each morning, in spite of the director, but aside from that, sounds like he was a total pro who is 100% committed to making the best movie he can. My uncle taught him how to fly a helicopter for, I believe, the most recent MI, the one with Henry Cavill. They spent 6 months in a helicopter cockpit every day, pretty much getting to know each other quite well. Ya know, it's quite a close setting, and my uncle has nothing but nice things to say about him. Says he works hard, cares about his projects and takes pride in them, and is a genuinely nice guy to everybody. They were getting lunch for the premiere and I think Jodie Foster, or a similar level famous actress, came up to say hi to Tom, and he introduced my uncle to her and they all sat and had lunch rather than just leaving him out of the conversation. I'm skeptical about him because of the whole Scientology thing, but otherwise he seems like a good guy. A friend of mine took him and Suri around part of Disney World to keep the general public away from them, not exactly like a bodyguard, she's just a Disney employee, and let her try on princess dresses in peace. She said he was nothing but thankful and appreciative, knowing that their presence was a bit of a burden and they were keeping her from doing her normal job. Totally didn't jive with the crazy things you hear about Scientology, but maybe he's able to compartmentalize that stuff. Honestly, if you spend every day memorizing movie scripts, then I assume your memory is already pretty good, or at least very practiced. Plus, if you can swing it, it's a good way to make people like you because, oh my god, that big shot remembered me, because we see celebrities as inherently more deserving of being remembered than the average Joe. Kind of like the popular kid in high school saying hi to the lowly band geek or Magic the Gathering enthusiast. It's somebody remembering a nobody, which is a fucking weird concept. Not knocking him for it, it's still impressive to remember all those names because I'm positive that dude meets hundreds of new people each week or at least each month. I can barely remember a handful of people's names if I meet a big group at once. It's humiliating. FYI, Tom Cruise is dyslexic. I remember he and Oprah bonding over it as she too is also dyslexic. In fact, a shocking number of some of the greatest talent of all sorts this world has ever seen were dyslexic. Dyslexics employ a mode of information processing known as conceptual thinking. Sometimes it's loosely and informally called picture thought. In a way, you could equate it to being like an autism spectrum disorder, ASD, in that they make up for what they lack by having other traits or skill sets that are amplified compared to average individuals. Tom's memorization of names is both a direct result of his dyslexia and the teachings of Scientology. What I'm basically trying to state here is that he was simply born that way, dyslexic, and his faith in Scientology encourages and requires constantly practicing what's known as going clear, while ascending the bridge to total freedom. He may not do it aloud, but I'd bet my life savings that he has some sort of method to recite names in his head on a loop, same as how he memorizes lines, in an effort to remember, and that's a skill dyslexics commonly employ. I'm not dyslexic but struggle to remember names. I'm a face rememberer. When I meet new people, I try to repeat their name back to them as I make physical contact, and then I try to introduce the person I'm with to the new person, again, using their name. Sometimes, when the person is important to remember, I'll make associations in my head with them like Fireball Frank or Ruby Tuesday. I came to say something similar. I wasn't in Fallout though. Always nice. Always 100%, always super professional. I've never seen him lose his temper even when he might have been justified. I've heard only one story from someone who tried to cast him in a negative light, but the guy was coked up and Cruise didn't want the guy around his kid. Like, dude, maybe Tom had a point not wanting you coked around his child? Even then he didn't lose his temper, according to the guy telling the story. Everyone gives him shit about, this is all about money, he doesn't care about the people, and I'm like, yeah. If you had tens, possibly hundreds of millions of dollars tied to a company. and someone risks that company, you would get mad. That's called a job. If I showed up to my place of work and didn't wear a mask, I would be fired. Just cause he's a celebrity and a Scientologist doesn't make him a dick. It makes him a boss. When people say that it's about the money, it is very short-sighted. That set aside to keep the shoot safe and those protocols makes it possible for hundreds, if not thousands of people to be employed during a pandemic. If the shoot were to shut down tomorrow, Tom Cruise would still be a multimillionaire, but there are a lot of people on that shoot who need things to keep rolling to keep a paycheck coming in. Those selfish asshats not abiding by protocol put everybody else's paycheck at risk. As a producer myself, I 100% get what's driven Cruise to yell. Since COVID hit, it's been the producer's task to make everything safe on set, so the show can go on. When all over sudden 50% of your day are COVID risk decreasing measurements and putting a team of people together to come up with an on-set strategy to keep everyone safe, it's for one not only something you were eased in and got schooled for, but also 100% your responsibility to keep everyone on set safe. Yes, you get a team and experts for it, but they are your responsibility, and everything you've put together to decrease the risks completely hinges on every last crew member obeying and following the rules. Not only for liability or monetary reasons, but also for ethical reasons. You don't want to be the producer of a super spreader event and put people in literal danger. Every time the shit hits the fan on set, all eyes are on the producer. Not the talent, not the grip, and not the director. And when your AAA tentpole movie got shut down because of COVID 3 times already, there's a pretty good chance you'd yell at people. Exactly what I've heard. He treats people fairly. I can't remember anyone big name like that who would address people below the line by name. I'd say ultimately he has his own brand. Regardless of his home life, he knows how to work with people and form a positive impression on set, which can go a long way. People commenting that he's a Scientologist and doesn't believe in people getting sick are kind of missing the point here. And also throughout the whole recording, he never once mentions his fear of anyone getting sick out of empathy or safety. It is purely about the money and the studio. It is all about continuing production, being professional, and following guidelines. Leah Remini came out and said this was all a publicity stunt. She said something on the lines of, as a Scientologist, he doesn't believe in getting sick or illnesses, so why lash out on a leak tape? Whether he believes COVID is a real or not, he must be aware that positive cases will shut production down and could have serious financial consequences. Films in production right now are banking on the lack of new content to be a plus when new projects are released. Shutting down production will put the timeline in jeopardy. Correct, but it's also about the fact they need some PR showing they were taking it seriously, while being the only people to get a pass to be allowed to continue working, while every other sector was shut down, and worse, allowed to travel in and out of the UK freely with zero quarantine. This entire thing is about the fact Mission Impossible and its cast is allowed to keep filming despite the general public being told they're not allowed to see family at Christmas. The timing of the UK going into Tier 4 and this PR stunt isn't a coincidence. Film production is not the only industry that is open. We've been working construction in one of the hardest hit parts of the nation non-stop since COVID began. We take the virus very seriously, and we have had these same tense moments with employees. Maybe my personal experience is clouding my judgment, but it didn't appear to be PR since I've made the same speech on more than one occasion. If it was, I'm sure he would have tried to sound friendlier and not curse so much. Well, this is where it gets weird. She's right in her assertion. Her documentary had people who said they knew the Scientology jig was up when their sister, a Scientologist, died of cancer. According to the teaching and framework of Scientology, that should not have been able to happen. I'm sure the church blamed the cancer on a lack of true devotion of some such shit, but it's definitely accurate for her to have that opinion. I see both sides for sure. He may or may not believe that. But even if he doesn't believe in getting sick or COVID, that still doesn't mean everything can't be shut down due to people not following guidelines and protocols. I think he genuinely cares about people losing their gigs, but also costing he and production companies money. He also made a random video about refresh rates and TVs, how motion, super smoothing should be turned off because he's 1. Right and 2. Wanted to spread the word. I think it's the same case in this situation even if he doesn't believe it himself. It's just the responsible thing to do in life, especially with a new mutation on his way. This isn't close to being true. Scientologists are taking this outbreak very seriously. They've published a book about social distancing and have a lot of information on their main website regarding how to stay safe during the pandemic. They deny psychology, not actual medical science. If anything, Cruz was freaking out because of Scientology. Edit. Lol, don't downvote me because you hate Scientology. I am presenting you with rock-solid facts with a source. I'm not supporting Scientology. What this person is saying is just outright false, as shown by the fact that the official Scientology website supports everything I'm saying. It's kind of disturbing that someone posting complete misinformation gets upvoted so much. All that's going to do is further spread the incorrect information. Do some research before you assume someone is right. Tom was right, those people were jeopardizing hundreds of jobs. Follow protocol, it's not difficult. He could have fired them on the spot, giving them a second or fourth, we don't know the history, chance was generous. Yeah, I'm a bit torn on it. I see what you're saying and I agree in principle, but I also think that kind of 3-minute screaming rant in front of everyone, plus a suspiciously leakage of that, is completely unnecessary. I know I'd quit on the spot if a boss ever talked to me like that. Talk to me like a human being, not an underling that you can shout at because you know there's no consequence for you. I live in San Diego and have a friend who does ID checks at some of the shipyards toward downtown 32nd Street. She told me that on his first day of filming he refused to show ID, big no, and told his driver to keep driving through because she knows who he is. He had a hat and sunglasses on at 4 a.m. and made a total ass out of himself. Apparently he tried this with multiple people at a 100% ID check base entry and made getting himself into a government base hell for base police. One of her coworkers claimed that someone threatened to pull a gun on him if he didn't get an ID out at one point. I can't vouch for that one, but there are audio, video recordings of him throwing fits they legally can't release. This makes me believe Leah Remini that his freakout on set is a huge stunt. Right? Like, do I believe that Tom cares about a production he's funding? Yes. Do I believe that he is a control freak and a professional and will absolutely lose his cool if his money is threatened? You betcha. Do I think this was accidentally leaked? Nope. The biggest sign is that where has Tom been making these statements rants? On a closed set where he's in charge. He's not making public comments asking everyone in the world to follow rules and be safe, just the ones who affect his bottom line. I think the release of said rant is 100% the cuz. Seems like a good fit. Quit your Hollywood job because you can't follow simple common sense safety guidelines, join an industry that doesn't care what safety is. Tom Cruise is far from my favorite, in fact MI is about all I enjoy him in, that and Tropic Thunder, but he's 100% right in his rant. Thousands of jobs are on the line across the industry. People gotta take this shit serious enough to not get shut down, and Tom is not wrong in calling them out. Drop the goofy conspiracies, whether you like Tom or not, this is a serious thing. Yelling normally would not be okay, but we live in unprecedented times and flaunting safety rules could not only lead to possible death of others but the entire shutdown of production, which would cost everyone their jobs. In times like this, yelling at people who ignore those safety protocols is justified, I think. Quitting in response just makes them look worse. Way to show you find your personal aversion to criticism for extremely stupid behavior more important than the safety of yourself, others, and the continuation of your job. That was my thought too. You're quitting, proving Tom right by showing you'd rather stand your ground on being able to skirt COVID restrictions or can't take any sort of criticism. I doubt this was the only time he mentioned it, probably mentioned it to a producer, nothing changed. Apparently the tension had been building up for weeks, and if I were Tom Cruise and people were walking around for weeks not following guidelines, I'd be pissed too. I think people are missing the point here. Of course it's a good thing to hold other people accountable. I believe Leah when she says it's a publicity stunt. The point is, this publicity stunt happened days after a number of business owners in California were expressing how Hollywood was setting up tents with little to no regard to COVID safety precautions. The state allowed this. Meanwhile, business owners who have COVID safety precautions in place, social distancing, PPE, etc., were told they can't have their business in operation. This publicity stunt equals Hollywood cares. Could we consider that Tom's blow-up was genuine without weaving this into a conspiracy theory? Thanks. Even if it is real, which I assume it is, why does that matter? People every day do what they're supposed to do on a job, and yes, I get the publicity helps possibly PPL take it more seriously, though after 9 months if you haven't by now. But if I was in a messed up cult and one day I saved a baby carriage going into oncoming traffic, even if I got lots of respect for saving a baby, it wouldn't change that I was in a fucked up Scientology cult. Tom's a weird dude, but he's in the right here. A little much, sure, but he's not just an actor in the movie, he's also one of the producers. That's a lot of his and other people's money on the line. And this isn't some low-budget indie think piece, it's Mission Impossible. Budget for the last one was something like $200 plus, yeah, follow the protocol. You're a professional, and a lot of jobs are on the line. Follow the protocol. I think TC is a nutjob Scientologist, but I cannot imagine trying to keep that many people following protocol on a movie set. It will take years off his life taking on what he claims to be the whole industry relying on them. With great responsibility comes, well, a heart attack. My husband works in the film industry, currently on a project filming in NYC, and they have entire COVID teams devoted to making sure people follow protocol. There's daily testing, extra cleaning crews, whose sole job is to remind people to social distance and keep their PPE on, etc. While it's certainly extremely important for crews to follow protocol, it's in no way Tom Cruise's sole responsibility to manage it. Most importantly, it's never okay or appropriate for a higher-up to publicly berate a worker like that. The offending workers should have been immediately spoken to privately, and the entire crew could have been addressed with a professional discussion that would have conveyed the same information. I work in film and everybody was texting me with this when it went viral. I agree with Tom's message. I disagree with the delivery. We're all professionals and we don't need people going on screaming rants on an already stressful set. If people are not following protocols, you fire them and make an announcement on set. It doesn't need to be a huge scene. Can you imagine the atmosphere in your workplace if the CEO comes and just has a screaming rant? From what I've seen, everybody is complying on my job sites. I don't need to be screamed at if I'm doing my job and wearing my PPE. Go take care of the problem and leave me alone. There is zero question that his rant wasn't justified. The pandemic is, quite literally, deadly serious, not to mention everyone else's job is on the line if an infection spreads. There are too many fucking idiots who don't understand that, and I totally get Cruise's rant. It's frustrating how goddamn dense these people are. 315,000 people dead. Sure, take your mask off, you jackass. You're lucky you didn't get fired on the spot. Oh, you quit? Well, all you had to do was put a piece of paper on your face. So stupid. A couple anecdotes don't mean you know a man, for better or worse. Just a reminder, you don't have to tear yourselves apart wondering if you like him or not. You can just enjoy his work and not know whether he's a good person or not. Your cashier tonight might be beating their dog. You'll never know, and that doesn't matter to you. Neither does this unless you want it to. I feel like you can acknowledge that Cruise is a chill dude and is nice to people for the most part without pretending that exploding like that on his set wasn't planned and that it wasn't a dickhead move to yell at his entire production crew for something he witnessed some individuals do. This guy probably gets paid more than at 50% of the crew combined, and he used them all as props for his publicity stunt. Tom Cruise is an abusive piece of shit who helped cover up a murder, and people are okay with him berating low, minimum wage employees for making a mistake. Fuck this millionaire piece of shit to hell. I'm hopeful they'll find more successful adventures than a Tom Cruise movie. I saw Tom Cruise at a grocery store in Los Angeles yesterday. I told him how cool it was to meet him in person, but I didn't want to be a douche and bother him and ask him for photos or anything. He said, "Oh, like you're doing now." I was taken aback, and all I could say was, "Huh," but he kept cutting me off and going, "Huh, huh, huh," and closing his hand shut in front of my face. I walked away and continued with my shopping, and I heard him chuckle as I walked off. When I came to pay for my stuff up front, I saw him trying to walk out the doors with like 15 Milky Ways in his hands without paying. The girl at the counter was very nice about it and professional, and was like, "Sir, you need to pay for those first." At first he kept pretending to be tired and not hear her, but eventually turned back around and brought them to the counter. When she took one of the bars and started scanning it multiple times, he stopped her and told her to scan them each individually, to prevent any electrical interference, and then turned around and winked at me. I don't even think that's a word. After she scanned each bar and put them in a bag and started to say the price, he kept interrupting her by yawning really loudly. Quitting your job because you disagree with the handling of COVID. While so many wait hours in lines at food banks, struggle to find work and pay rent. But you quit your job because of strict COVID protocols. SMH.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like the video. And if you are new, subscribe and click on the bell icon.